Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel, Bethany Brings Books. My name is Bethany. I'm excited to do another video today. So I thought it would be fun to talk about some of the books that I want to read in the second part of this year. Just a few weeks, it'll be June, so we're halfway through the year. I have 14 books that I would like to read before 2022 ends. That would be about 2.5 books a month, something like that. So that's doable. These are just some of the books that have been on the top of my list for a while now that I really would like to read. I've said before, I'm a big mood reader, so there may be a lot of books that I want to get to, but if I'm not in the mood for them, I'll push them to the side. So that's kind of what happens a lot of time. But I'm trying to, I think having a book tube will help me be a little bit more focused and stick with some of the things that I picked to read. So this year I've not done the greatest. Like, my reading has slowed down a lot because I've got a lot more going on. I live by myself now with me and my 3 children, so I have a lot more things on my plate. So it's slowed down quite a bit. Hopefully it'll pick back up as the year goes on. Anyway, all of that, let's get started. I'm going to do 7 fiction books and 7 nonfiction, and I'll do the 7 fiction first. So the first one on this list is Safely Home by Randy Alcorn. So what's interesting is I had someone on my Facebook, one of my Facebook friends, mentioned that this was her favorite fiction book. Like a few days, a week or so, a couple weeks later, I happened to go in Second and Charles, and I found a copy of it, and so I was like, I think that's that book, and I'm gonna get it. Well, then not long after that, I saw a few people on BookTube. I can't remember if it was 2 people or just one. I know one of the people that I saw talk about it was, I think it's Stacy. I'm sorry, I said Stephanie. It's Stacy, and I think your channel name is Christian Reads and Classics, but if it's wrong, I'll link your channel and put the correct one up here on the screen. So I saw you talking about it, how you really enjoyed it. From what I've heard, it is about a Christian in China who is being persecuted for his faith. And I think he's like reunited with one of his old college friends, and they kind of like their paths cross again, and his college friend is like a businessman. So I really would like to read this. I have had like for quite a while now, several years, a heart for persecuted Christians, trying to pray more for persecuted Christians and trying to be more aware of what a lot of Christians around the world are going through, and also just, you know, spread a little bit more awareness about it. I feel like a lot of times we tend to just let that kind of slip by, and we don't put enough thought and prayers toward all of our Christian brothers and sisters. And it's a biblical thing that we're taught. I believe it was Paul, said that we should remember all of our brothers and sisters that are in prison and bound, especially, you know, those that are in prison for the gospel and those that are being persecuted. And I can't remember the exact verse, but I'm going to put that scripture up here. Anyway, that's something. The persecuted church is already something that has a special place in my heart in prayer, and then just trying to bring awareness to it and pray for them. But I look forward to reading this. The next book that I would like to read this year is Stay With Me by Becky Wade. I know y'all know this book. It's all over BookTube. I ordered this one a while back, and I started it. I've read like a few chapters, and just, I was not in the mood. I love her writing. I really enjoy her writing, and I'm sure I will really enjoy this book. And it was not anything to do with the book why I quit. It was just, I wasn't in the mood. So I'm really looking forward to reading this because I want to read, I have the 2nd and 3rd book in the series. The 3rd one just came out. I've heard really good things about both of those, and so I'm looking forward to reading them. And I would love to get this one read this year so I can read the 2nd and 3rd. And I know y'all have probably heard what this one's about, a Bible study author who goes home to her family, and she has some issues that she's dealing with, and so she goes and stays in a cottage on this guy's property. He has some issues that he's faced, and he's trying to help her with some of the stuff she's going through, and I'm looking forward to reading it. The next one that I want to read, a lot of these are books that I've pre-ordered, and I have since pre-ordered the rest of the books in the series, or the next book in the series, and just haven't read the first one yet. So this was another one. This is by Carolyn Miller, Dusk's Darkest Shores. She is a Regency author that I really enjoy. Her Regency writing style, to me, is very Austen-esque, if that's a word. Very much like, kind of, if you're looking for someone who seems realistic, very detailed, as far as like the, you know, I feel like the details are very accurate. Language style is very accurate to the period. Like conversational style, these seem that way. Like they're really accurate to the time period, it feels like to me. I've read the first two in one of her other series. This is her newest series that she's working on now, and I just got her second one in the mail, which I'm really excited about reading because it is A Marriage of Convenience. And it just sounds interesting. It says, Mary Bloomfield has no illusions. Her chances for matrimony have long since passed her by. Still, her circumstances are pleasant enough, especially since she has found purpose in assisting her father with his medical practice in England's beautiful Lake District. Even without love, she's content with her life. That is, until Adam Edgerton returns to the Sleepy Lakes. This decorated war hero did not arrive home to acclaim and rest, but to battle an insidious disease. Mary's caring nature cannot stand by as someone suffers, but how can she help this man see any brightness in his future when he's plunged into melancholic darkness, his dreams laid waste by his condition? And so I think maybe he's battling PTSD, like, as what it sounds like from the back, like PTSD back then, before they knew what PTSD was. And these are set in England, and the cover is just gorgeous. That's so pretty. And this is part of the Regency Wallflowers series. The next fiction book that I want to read is A Midnight Dance by Joanna Davidson Politano. She is one of my absolute favorite historical fiction authors. I've read every other of her books except for this one and Finding Lady Jane, I believe. No, Finding Lady Enderley is another book that I've already read. Lady Jane Disappears. I have not read Lady Jane Disappears, and I've not read this one. She also has another one coming out this year called maybe something Melody. I have to look. I can put it in the box or put it up here on the screen. And so I would love to read this, and actually I would really love to read Lady Jane Disappears, just because once I read these two, then I will be caught up on her backlist, and I can read her next one that comes out in a few months. So that would be really cool. But she is like my favorite, and I've heard so many good things about this. 5-star reviews over and over. And honestly, all of her books I hear good things about, and I love all of her books. So I know this is going to be another good one. So I'm really looking forward to this one. Like I said, she's my favorite historical author, and her books are so well written, just above your typical Christian fiction. Really good. Also, this is another one that I actually have this one on one of my classics that I want to read. One of my goals this year was to read 6 classics. I've read one. Technically, I've read a couple because I've read like the first 3 in the Anne of Green Gables series. I've read The Secret Garden. But I had a list of 6 that I specifically wanted to read, and this was one of them, The Scarlet Letter. I've heard of this since I was young, never read it. So I actually looked at it the other day, and where I was at in the frame of mind I was at then was just kind of like some days I just have a little bit of brain fog. brain fog, not frog, but even though it might feel like brain frog, some days I have brain fog just from everything that I've gone through, just different things, you know. I have brain fog. And so I knew when I picked it up, the language style and stuff, I was like, I mentally cannot grasp this right now, so I need to wait a little bit. But I'm looking forward to reading this one, and I'm interested to see what happens with it. If y'all have read it, let me know if you liked it or not. Then the other Christian fiction is The Mozart Code by Rachel McMillan. So I had pre-ordered this, and it came several months ago. And once I got it, I read the back, or maybe I saw it on Instagram. I think I might have saw someone's post on Instagram talking about it when it came out, and they were talking about her last book, how this one followed a character in her last book. And so I was like, oh, okay. So I already had her last book and had not read that one, the one before this. So I was like, well, I want to read that one first. So I read that one, I think it was in March, I believe. The London restoration. I enjoyed it. I think I gave it 4 stars, I believe, 4 or 5 stars. And it was actually one of the first World War II period books I've read in a long time. That's not really typically one of my favorite genres, but time periods. And this one, it is about, so this one, it says, Lady Sophia Villiers is no stranger to intrigue, as her work with Alan Turing's bomb machines at Bletchley Park during the war attests. Now as part of Simon Barr's covert team in post-war Vienna, she uses her inimitable charm and codename Starling to infiltrate the world of relics, uncovering vital information that could shift the balance of the mounting Cold War. When several influential men charge her with finding the death mask of Mozart, Sophie wonders if there is more than the composer's legacy at stake, and finds herself drawn to potential answers in Prague. Simon Barrington, the illegitimate heir of one of Sussex's oldest estates, used the previous war to hide his insecurities about his past. Now he uses his high breeding to gain access to all 4 Allied quarters of the ruined city in an attempt to slow the fall of the Iron Curtain. He has been in love with Sophie Villiers since the moment he met her, and a marriage of convenience to save Simon's estate has always kept her close. Until now, when Sophie's mysterious client in Prague forces him to wonder if her allegiance to him and their cause is in question. Then the last one is Jocelyn by Sarah Monson. I don't know. I'm sorry, Sarah. But this is the second book in her Sewing in Southern California series. And so she is an indie published author that I discovered. I saw Alicia over at, is it Christian? I can't remember her channel name. I don't know why I always forget her channel name, and I've watched her for like a long time. Sorry, Alicia, but I will put your link and your name up here. I first saw her talk about Sarah's books, and then I'm in a group on Facebook that is like a Christian fiction group, and so I kept seeing her name mentioned a lot, and I asked about books with characters who might be plus size or not like the perfect image that you sometimes, I feel like in fiction, as someone who's plus size myself, you feel like all the characters are like super skinny and gorgeous. And anyway, I did a post along those lines, like asking for books with characters who might be plus size or might be not your typical idea of gorgeous. And so someone mentioned her book Nicole, that is about a plus size character, curvy character. And so I was like, okay, well, I went on Amazon and looked at it and thought I'd order it. And so I ordered that one. I read it, flew through it, and I was like, okay, I gotta order the rest of these books. So I went ahead and ordered the rest in the series, but I've not read them in order. I read the third and the fourth, and now I've read the first, and this is the second. So I read them like 3, 4, then 1, 2. The first one is Molly, this one is Jocelyn, the third one is Nicole, and the fourth one is Amanda, I think is what it's called. But if you're looking for someone who writes clean, faith-based rom-coms, Sarah Monson. She is so good. I would read her books over some of the top Christian fiction authors out there. She's super great. Her books are funny, clean. She doesn't shy away from difficult topics. I like her writing style. If you are looking for a good indie author to go support, I highly recommend Sarah. And so these are they follow 4 girls who are friends in California, and they have like a sewing club. The sewing stuff is very, I would say, loose throughout the series. Like, it's something that we kind of see lightly, especially in the later books, so we don't see it as much. They are best friends, and each book kind of just follows them as they find romance and love. But anyway, so this one is about Jocelyn. It says, what would Scarlet O'Hara do? Anything to survive, that's what. But instead of a man-eating southern belle in hoop skirts and big hats, my version of existence looks an awful lot like a financial conglomerate employee staring blankly at budget analysis spreadsheets. Either way, the motto has served me well most of my life. Until now, that is. The corporate retreat location has just been announced, and this city girl is headed to a dude ranch in the country. How will Scarlet help me survive that? No, this time I'll turn to the sage advice of preteen YouTubers and their ponies to help me from making a fool of myself. But who's going to help me navigate the yet kind yet reticent cowboy in the black Stetson, the cattle ranch owner who's slowly claiming corners of my heart? I've enjoyed her books and really appreciate just her characters and the fun stories and the faith content. Anyway, if you're looking for a good read, give Sarah a try. And that is it for my fiction. So now we're going to dive into the nonfiction. First book that I really want to read is the Azusa Street Mission Revival. So another book that I started last year, I think. I enjoyed what I read of it. And I just haven't gotten back into it. I want to restart it so I can, because I got about this far. And I want to restart it so I can just remember what I read, dive into it. Anyway, this is about the Azusa Street Revival. My religious background is Pentecostal, and for those who may not know about Pentecostalism, the Azusa Street Revival was a really significant event in the Pentecostal, like the current Pentecostal movement. This was basically the birth of the current global Pentecostal movement. On Azusa Street, that was where revival broke out and spread across the world, and there were just thousands of healings and many different things done. If you've not read about the Azusa Street Revival and you are interested to, I would definitely recommend this book, because from what I read, I really enjoyed it. William Seymour was the son of Louisiana slaves. He began meeting with a tiny congregation in a 2-story wooden building in downtown Los Angeles. That was 1900, right around 1900, the turn of the century. What began as a spontaneous gathering of believers quickly grew into a passionate revival and renewal of the work of the Holy Spirit. With little more than a printing press, a trolley stop, and a powerful message, the spiritual fire emanating from the Apostolic Faith Mission on Azusa Street rapidly crossed strict cultural and national borders into Mexico, Canada, Britain, Scandinavia, Africa, India, and China. Led by William Seymour, the revival became the catalyst for the modern Pentecostal movement. And so this book talks about that, the birth of the movement and the history, and just shares that story. So that one I'm really excited. Next, this one's been on my TBR a while. This is a book that I picked up probably from a thrift store, I'm not sure, somewhere in the past, and I'm really trying to read more parenting books. This one is called Shepherding a Child's Heart by Ted Tripp. And it actually has a recommendation on the back by Elizabeth Elliot. I'm glad to recommend this book for its remarkably clear, biblical, and practical teaching. So I have really enjoyed Elizabeth Elliot's teaching, writing for a long time now. So when I saw that she recommended it, I was like, you know what? I definitely want to read it now. This is one of the books that I had on my list to read this year. I think it's just about how to speak to the heart of your child. The things your child does and says flow from the heart. Luke 6:45 puts it this way: out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. Written for parents with children of any age, this insightful book provides perspectives and procedures for shepherding your child's heart into the paths of life. One of my goals this year was to read, I think, at least one book by Timothy Keller. I have quite a few of his books. I really enjoy him. He is probably one of my favorite modern religious authors. Sometimes I tend to shy away from buying a lot of modern religious books unless I've like read some from the author, just because you never know what you're going to get. Like, you may get someone who's writing totally like off the wall, not my cup of tea, I guess. So sometimes I'm a little bit leery of there's a lot of older religious authors I like, but some of the newer ones I have to read them first. And so Timothy Keller is one that I have read several of his books, and I really enjoy his writing. His very thought-provoking, always bringing out things in scripture that I've not noticed before or never seen. And so I have several of his books that I want to read. I want to read his whole backlist, but this one, I just picked one off my cart. This one is called Preaching, and it is communicating faith in an age of skepticism. It's just talking about how a lot of us struggle with communicating our faith, and so he is just kind of talking about that and encouraging us in being able to communicate our faith to others. And so I'm looking forward to reading this one too. If you're looking for good religious nonfiction, our Timothy Keller is awesome. Now this is one that I recently picked up. I found this one at Second and Charles, the same time I found the other book I talked about earlier by Randy Alcorn. This is about Hudson Taylor, and so I really enjoy missionary biographies, stories. Really enjoy them so much. I read a little brief biography of Hudson Taylor last year, I think, and when I saw this, I was like very excited about reading it. It is The Spiritual Secret of Hudson Taylor, and this is by Dr. and Mrs. Howard Taylor. I can't remember if the people that wrote this are related to him or not. Hudson Taylor, he was a missionary to China, and his story is just, I enjoyed reading the short version of it that I read, and I was like, I knew there was a longer version that I was really interested in reading, and so when I saw this, I grabbed it up, and I've been looking forward to reading it ever since. He had a lot of, he had trials and things that he went through. If I'm not mistaken, I think his wife passed away and some of his children, I believe. I think that was him. There's another missionary that I don't want to get them mixed up, but I believe that was him. But I know he went through a lot of things, and his story is just encouraging and inspiring, and so I'm really looking forward to this one. Then another book that I've had for a while, I've wanted to read it for several years now, is Heaven by Randy Alcorn. It is pretty thick though, so it's like so big that I've started it, like read a couple chapters. I say that a lot, but I just haven't finished it, and I really dug into it and got it. And so this is one that I'm really looking forward to. It goes over a lot of questions. Each chapter is a question, and it's just a really in-depth look at what the Bible tells us about heaven and what we can learn from what the Bible has told us about heaven. So this is one that I've really wanted to read for a long time, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about heaven and even about hell and eternity, and there's things that we've kind of just picked up on be it through song lyrics or just things that we've kind of passed on to one another that are not accurate when it comes to what heaven is going to be like. And so I'm really interested in digging into this. And the last one that I have is Suffering is Never for Nothing by Elizabeth Elliot. Now, Elizabeth Elliot is one of my favorite religious authors. Her story has inspired me for years, and especially now, since I mentioned in my last video, my husband passed away about 1.5 years ago, and my story is nothing like hers when it comes to, you know, how her husband passed away on a mission field. My story is nothing like that, but just reading some of her books, I've really found inspiration and encouragement and a kinship with someone who was a widow like me, and she was a widow 2 times. Her books have been so inspiring and encouraging to me, and I really enjoy listening to her speak. There's videos of her on YouTube. There's like a podcast that it's old episodes of her from a program that she used to do. She has passed away now, but her books they're inspirational to me. I've seen some of her conversations on suffering, some of her writing, and it's really spoken to my heart, considering the suffering that I've gone through for, you know, in my husband's passing and everything with that. And so I'm really looking forward to reading this. Just, there have been some hard things in my life, of course, as there have been in yours, and I cannot say to you, I know exactly what you're going through. But I can say that I know the one who knows. And I've come to see that it's through the deepest suffering that God has taught me the deepest lessons. And that has just resonated with me so strongly, because as I've read some of her conversations about suffering along those same lines, it has really just spoken to my heart, and it has been part of how God has been speaking to me and how He's moved in me in all of this. The realization that it's in suffering that we learn the deep lessons, the hard lessons of life. My husband passed away 1.5 years ago, and I'm going to be a little bit honest. My husband passed away from suicide. And I was pregnant with our 3rd child at the time. There were some issues going on at the time, just personal things. And it had been that month before he passed away had already been a hard month, and then he passed away, and it was the hardest time of my life. And I would never have chosen to walk this road. But God has been gracious to me, and as I've walked this road, I've seen that suffering builds character, and it changes us in a way that nothing else can, and it can grow us spiritually, and somehow I can't explain it or put it into words, but it can produce a love in your heart for God, and a love, and just open your eyes to His faithfulness and His goodness in ways that nothing else can. And so suffering, like she said, suffering is never for nothing. It teaches us deep lessons. We don't want to suffer. I would never have chosen this road. It's not the road that I believe God wanted me to walk. I don't believe He wanted my husband to commit suicide. But it was his choice, and he did it, and I faced a road that I had to go down, and God gave me grace and strength and He's still giving me grace and strength and carrying me down it. And so that's just my little encouragement to you guys. Maybe that can help y'all, help someone if you're going through something hard. So that is all the books that I am hoping to read before the end of the year. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and please subscribe to my channel, Bethany Brings Books. I am having a lot of fun with this, and I look forward to the next video. Thank y'all for watching. Bye bye.